Okay, so let's go over a few basics about lists. I hope this will add to your reading. So I wanted to start by talking about tuples, which the book mentions at the beginning of the chapter. I normally don't do tuples till later, so I thought I would just show you what they are. Um, you basically take a variable, you set it equal to a group of things separated by commas inside of parentheses. And the main difference between tuples and lists is that tuples can't be changed. You can't add to them, you can't take away from them, you can't change, say, this 100 to be 700. But lists you can change, so you can add items to it, you can change items from it, from one thing to another. And there are good reasons to use tuples. For example, if you want to have people's names and IDs, for example, in a tuple, you obviously don't want to change those things. So that's just the main difference. But otherwise, they work kind of the same way. You can loop through tuples. You can do a lot of the same things with them. But I use lists a lot more than tuples. So we're going to start by talking about lists. So lists are groups of items, just like tuples are. So you can, you just have a variable. In this case, my variable makes sense. I've got fruits here, and then I have a list of strings, all of which are names of fruits. So you can have anything inside of a list. You can have numbers, you can have strings, you can have other lists, which I'm going to show you later. You can have a combination of things, so you can have numbers and strings. So lists are pretty flexible things. You can even have lists of functions. You can do all kinds of cool things with lists. So a list basically keeps track of things for you, so you can store things in it. Some of you use the camera, for example, to take pictures and store those in a list, and then the animated GIF basically loops through those pictures. Okay, so let's just look at a couple of basic things that lists can do. So right here on line 6, I am going to add another fruit to my list, and to do that I use the method append. These things are called methods. Don't worry about that too much, what they're called, but you will have to remember a bunch of these methods. It just will make your life easier. So fruits.append adds a fruit onto the end of the list, and we're going to show some other methods shortly. You can print lists out, and it will print the whole thing. Let me uncomment this as well so you can see. This is remove, so you can remove things from the list, and then we'll print it. So let's run that and see what that looks like. Okay, so we had our initial list, which had apples, pears, and grapes in it. We added bananas to it at the end, so bananas is over here at the end. And then we removed apples, so now apples is gone, and we have pears, grapes, and bananas. Okay, so now let's look at another list and some other things that you can do with your list. So let's uncomment this. So here's another list. It's got vegetables in it. So I've got vegetables equals carrots, broccoli, spinach. And then I'm going to mush those two lists together to create the list of good food, food that's good for you. And then we'll print that out and see what that looks like. We'll just leave everything so that we can see it. Okay, so it did our other things that we did before, and then it created a list over here. You can see this new list that has pears, grapes, bananas, carrots, broccoli, and spinach. It added vegetables onto the end of the fruits list. The other thing that's cool about lists is that you can loop through lists. So I'm going to uncomment that. So I can print each fruit in the list. So you can see that down here at the bottom, I've got pears, grapes, bananas. It loops through my list of fruit, which is kind of cool. There are you probably are going to end up doing more interesting things than just looping through your list and printing things out. A lot of times we perform operations on lists. We might have a list of numbers and we want to increase every number in the list by 2. There are all kinds of things that you can do with lists. So whenever you're thinking, I have this information, this data, and I need to do something with every piece of that data, a lot of times the way to deal with that is to have it in a list and loop through the list and do the thing that you need to do with that. So here's some other things that you can do. I'm going to start with this one. So you can find out the length of any given list, and sometimes that can be useful if you need to know, okay, where am I? How many items do I have in my list? Maybe there's a limit to how many items you want people to, running your program to be able to put in the list. I mean, lists themselves don't actually have a real limit, but maybe you want to limit it to 10, so you want to see where you are each time. And you want to see, have I got 10 items in my list? And if I do, then I'm going to tell the person that's running my program that they can't add any more items to the list, that they need to remove an item before they add an item. That could be an example from the game that is used in the book. So maybe you're only allowed to have 10 items in your inventory, and in order to add another item, you have to remove an item first. So that just prints out a number. In each case, both our fruits and vegetables list has 3 items in it. Another thing that you can do is you can actually see what's at each point in the list. So lists are indexed, so they start with 0. I don't know if you remember when we did our binary counting, things like that at the beginning of the year. We talked a little bit about how computers count. And they start at 0 instead of 1. So the list, if you look over here, our list of pears, grapes, bananas, pears is at index 0, grapes is at 1, and bananas is at 2. So here where I say print fruits 1, this is how you say, hey, tell me what's at the second spot or index 1 of my list. You can print that out. So I'm going to see what that is, and it should tell me. It should be grapes. And then I created a new list here with all the days of the week, and this is going to tell me what's at spot 3 or index 2. So 0, 1, 2, that should print Wednesday. So let's see if that works. Okay, so grapes is in index spot 1, and so we got that result. And Wednesday is at week index spot 2, so we got that correct. You can also find out, maybe you want to know, okay, where is Friday in my list in the week? Is it at the beginning? And if so, should I change that? So we're going to look at where that is, how that works. So this tells me right here, line 25, and then that's printed here at the bottom. So this tells me that Friday is at spot 4, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So Friday is at spot 4. The other thing that you can do is print different sections. You can pull out different, what they call slices of a list using a colon. So if we wanted to pull out everything from spot index 2 on, we would use this notation, so week and then index spot 2 and then a colon after it. If we want to print out everything from the beginning up to index spot 5, but nothing beyond that, this is what that is. If we want to print everything from the end of the list and then up 2 from the end, this is minus 2, 2 from the end, and then up to the end. That's actually a pretty common thing to do. If you want to see what's at the end of the list, you would do a minus 1, and let's actually add that in so you can sort of see what that looks like. So the end of my list should be Sunday. So that would give us -1. If I wanted to do a internal slice of the list, my list isn't very long, so like if I wanted to do from 2 to 5, I could do that, and I would end up with the stuff that's in the middle from, say, Wednesday to, I guess it would be Saturday maybe. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, so over here we printed from 2 on, so that printed from Wednesday up to Sunday. We printed from the beginning up to number 5, so the weekdays. And then we printed from the second from the end, so Saturday, up to the end, Sunday. And then we printed just the thing that's at the end of the list, so Sunday. And then we printed from 2 to 5, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's cool. You can add things to the list, like take things out. Like let's say I actually want to substitute. I don't want to call Wednesday Wednesday. I want to call it Wacky Wednesday. So I know that Wednesday is at spot 2, and this might be a reason why you would want to know where Wednesday is. We did that up here, week.index Friday. We could find out where Wednesday is. So week 2, we're now going to make that equal to Wacky Wednesday, and we'll print that. So let's look at that. So you can see over here, I now have Monday, Tuesday, Wacky Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just like it was before. So we don't want Wacky Wednesday, or we don't want regular old Wednesday anymore. We want Wacky Wednesday. Well, let's say we decide, you know what, we just don't even want Wednesday to exist at all. So we're going to delete Wednesday, Wacky Wednesday, or any kind of Wednesday from the list. So if we do that, we end up with Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can also count how many times an item appears in the list. So the interesting thing about lists is that you can have, you know, as many things as you want in the list. So we could count how many Tuesdays are in there. Should give us 1. And you might want to know that, like, you know, maybe you want things to be unique. So if anything gets over 1 item, you want to do something about that and get rid of it. You can insert things into the list at particular points. So you just give it an index number, and it will insert it at that point. It's very similar to doing this week 2, but it doesn't take anything out. It actually inserts it into the list. Normally when you do an append, which we did at the very beginning, it puts something at the end of the list. If you want it to go into a particular place in the list, then you can use insert to tell it where to put it. So let's look at that. So as you can see, we counted the number of Tuesdays here. We ended up with 1. And we added Wednesday back into our list at its appropriate spot. So that's the basics of single lists. And just briefly, I'm going to show you, we're going to do this a lot more later. But I just wanted, since it was mentioned in the book, I wanted to show a list of lists and how one figures out what's where. So you can have a list, which you can see these are separated by commas. So I've got each one of these separated by commas. In other programming languages, these are often called arrays. So you have a list of lists. You can have, I could have each of these lists in here be yet more lists, so it could get really complicated. To find things in those lists, you simply put your list that you want to look in, and then the item in that list. So this right here should give us, we want to look at the first list and see what's at index place 1, so that should be number 2. And then down here, I want to look at the second item in my list, the second list, third item in the list, 0, or not third item, but third index. So 0, 1, 2, 3, so that should give us 8. So this should give us 2, and this should give us 8. So let's see if that's true. And indeed, we got 2 and we got 8. So, lists are actually really fun to work with once you kind of get used to them. So, you'll need to remember all of this stuff for the quiz on Tuesday. And I hope that was helpful and gave you a little more information in addition to the book.